You noticed before anyone else. The shifts, the contradictions, the fractures forming beneath the surface. It wasn't paranoia, wasn't guesswork. You just knew. The energy was wrong. The way they moved, the words they chose, the nervous glances, exchanged when they thought no one was watching. You saw the entire script before the first act even began. And when you spoke up, they scoffed, laughed, twisted your warnings into paranoia, mockery, ridicule. "That'll never happen," they smirked. "You're reaching," but you weren't. You were watching a storm form before the first raindrop touched the ground. They carried on, oblivious, acting as if they were untouchable, as if their game was foolproof. You let them. You weren't here to convince anyone. You weren't here to argue. You simply stated what you saw, and that was enough. Then, piece by piece, it started happening, exactly as you called it. At first, they ignored the signs, hoping the shift would correct itself. It didn't. The cracks widened. The tensions thickened. The same ones who dismissed you began whispering among themselves, uncertain, uneasy. And then the collapse began. And suddenly, the ones who swore they had everything under control were scrambling. The ones who told you that you were crazy were now grasping at explanations, trying to convince themselves that this wasn't what it looked like. But it was. It was exactly what it looked like. And you had already seen every move before they even made it. And they're uneasy now, uncomfortable, because the one thing they never wanted to admit, the one thing they never thought they'd have to face, is staring them in the face. And you were right, and they were blind. The weight of realization is pressing down on them, and it's unbearable. They don't know whether to fear you, resent you, or convince themselves that it was all just a coincidence. But deep down, they know better. You didn't guess. You didn't speculate. You knew discern, and that terrifies them. None. The moment they swore you were wrong, it's recorded. The laughter, the mockery, the eye rolls, they live on in messages, in comments, in the lingering echoes of their own arrogance. You didn't need to argue. You didn't need to force anyone to listen. You spoke, and time took care of the rest. Every warning, every insight, every prediction, time-stamped. And they dismissed you then, pretended not to hear you, brushed off your words like they were just noise. But the truth has a way of making itself known, and when it finally does, there's nowhere to hide. Now reality is confronting them. The exact situations you warned about, happening, the betrayals you sensed, exposed, the downfall you foresaw, unfolding in real time. They can't twist their way out of this one. Your proof is carved into the fabric of time itself. And they scroll. Back now, searching, sifting through their own history, hoping they imagined it. But the words are still there, your words, clear, direct, undeniable. And that's what eats them alive. They can't erase what they said. They can't erase what you said. The past isn't a fog they can manipulate. It's concrete, etched into existence. It's there in old conversations, in recorded exchanges, in quiet admissions they never thought would matter. But they matter now. And the worst part, the weight of their own denial, the memory of laughing in your face, the certainty they had that you were just talking nonsense, and they were sure of it until they weren't. Now every reminder feels like a blade to the ego. Every passing moment solidifies one truth they can't escape, and you saw it coming. And they never saw you coming. And they were loud when they thought they were right, swearing up and down that you didn't know what you were talking about, rolling their eyes, mocking you, speaking with the confidence of those who thought they would never be exposed. But reality has a way of humbling the arrogant. Now, their voices aren't as strong. Their certainty has crumbled into hesitation, their bold claims into careful rewrites. They think if they tweak the past just enough, if they shift their words just slightly, they can erase the way they doubted you. But the past isn't a chalkboard. They can wipe clean. It's carved into time, preserved in memory, and worse for them, too many people remember. So, the subtle revisions begin. They never said you were wrong, not exactly. They just weren't sure. They never mocked you, they were just playing devil's advocate. They weren't attacking you, they were just being skeptical. But no matter how carefully, they rearrange their story. The truth doesn't change. They were certain before, certain that you were wrong, certain that they were right, certain that nothing would happen the way you said it would. And they're scrambling and trying to shift the blame, trying to act like they were neutral all along, acting as if they saw it coming too. But the weight of the truth is too heavy to ignore, and the eyes on them are too many to deceive. And it's too late, and you remember, and so does everyone else. They lit the match with confidence, expecting to watch you burn, whispered lies in the right ears, stirred the pot just enough to keep the chaos swirling. They built the stage, set the traps, and sat back, convinced that you wouldn't make it out. But fire has no loyalty. And now the flames are at their feet, and they never expected their own drama to turn on them, never thought the lies would grow teeth. They assumed they could control the narrative, that their flying monkeys would keep the illusion alive, that their manipulations would be airtight, but they underestimated the weight of their own deceit. And one by one, the cracks formed. The people they used as pawns started questioning. The alliances they built started breaking. The same ones who eagerly played along with their schemes are now turning on them, realizing they were just pieces in a bigger game, one they never actually controlled. And you didn't even have to fight. And you stood still while they destroyed themselves, watched as their own fire consumed everything they built. Because that's the thing about deception, it's never sustainable. Eventually, the weight of it collapses in on itself, and the ones who thought they were in control find themselves suffocating under their own destruction. They thought they were the puppeteers, thought they were pulling all the right strings, but the stage is collapsing, and there's no one left to save them. No one believes them anymore. No one trusts them anymore. And worst of all, no one is coming to put out the fire. And drop a comment. I own the narrative if they tried to bury the truth, but now it speaks louder than their lies. And they were too focused on you, watching, studying, mimicking, convinced that if they could just figure out your secret, they could replicate your power. They never wanted to learn, only to take down. But what they didn't understand is that your energy was never theirs to wield. The more they watched, the more they slipped. The deeper they tried to tap into your essence, the further they drifted from their own. They tried to move like you, speak like you, carry themselves with the same effortless force. But imitation has a cost on, and they've lost themselves. It started with small changes, an unease they couldn't shake, a restlessness they couldn't explain. They didn't notice it at first, how they had begun to disconnect from their own path, how their obsession with you had turned into a spiral, end. Now they don't know where they are. The path they were meant to walk, gone, and the identity they once had, blurred. The power they tried to steal, out of reach. They thought shadowing you would make them stronger. Instead, it hollowed them out. They took in so much of your presence, so much of your movement, so much of your essence, but none of it belonged to them. And now they're left wandering, desperate for direction, stuck in the confusion they created for themselves. And the worst part, and you're not even looking back, they chased after something that was never meant for them. But you kept moving, kept evolving, kept rising, and now they realized the truth too late, and your journey was never theirs to follow. And they'll never find their way back. No. They tried everything. The whispers, the sabotage, the setups in plain sight, and the curses cast in the dark. They wanted you broken, humiliated, erased, convinced themselves that if they hit you hard enough, you'd crumble under the weight of their attacks. But you never fell. Every scheme, every plotted downfall, every hidden hand pulling strings behind the scenes, none of it worked. They waited for the moment you'd collapse, for the day you'd finally lose, but that day never came. They're spiraling because nothing they did stuck, and nothing they threw at you could break through, and nothing they touched could bring you down. They watched you walk away untouched, untouched by the gossip, untouched by the betrayals, untouched by the very things that should have destroyed you. And that is what's driving them insane. They can't explain it, they can't understand it. Every law they thought they knew, every rule they believed in, none of it applies to you. They thought they had power, thought their tactics, their connections, their tricks could bend the world to their will. But they never factored in one thing, divine protection Tuzna, and now they're terrified. And terrified of you. And terrified of what it means that you're still standing. Terrified of what's coming for them now, that every attack they launched is circling back around. And they can't sleep, can't rest, can't escape the weight of their own actions. Because the moment they realized they could never touch you, a deeper fear crept in, and the consequences are coming, and there's nothing they can do to stop them. They thought they were setting you up, that every trap, every smear campaign, every whispered lie would bury you. They worked tirelessly to weave the perfect web, a downfall designed just for you. But they didn't account for one thing. That web was never yours, it was theirs, and it's tightening. One by one, the traps they set are snapping shut, but not around you. Around them. The chaos they orchestrated, the drama they fueled, the betrayals they encouraged, it's all circling. Back faster than they can outrun it, and the cracks in their world are impossible to ignore. And family conflicts. The same people they used as allies are turning against them. The whispers they started are being twisted against them. There is no loyalty left. Only paranoia, and financial losses, the energy they wasted trying to ruin you. It's costing them more than they expected. Every investment falls through, every opportunity dries up, every plan collapses before it can even begin. And betrayals. The ones who once stood beside them are nowhere to be found. Those loyal allies, gone. They are learning painfully that the same deceit they used on others has made them a target too. And now they're desperate. Desperate to undo what they started, desperate to regain control, desperate to make the consequences disappear. But it's too late. Every exit is blocked. No one is coming to save them. No one is going to clean up the mess. They built this disaster with their own hands. And they have no choice but to sit in the ruins. They weren't part of the attacks. They weren't the ones spreading lies or setting traps. No, they just watched. They stood by while the chaos unfolded, choosing neutrality, pretending it had nothing to do with them. When you spoke, they dismissed it. When you warned them, they brushed it off. But now they remember. And every word you said, every moment you tried to show them what was happening, every truth they ignored because it was easier to side with the majority. They see it now, and it's unsettling. They replay the past in their minds, going over the things they once laughed off, realizing you were never reaching, never overreacting, never imagining things. You were just ahead of them. And that's what makes them uncomfortable. And because it means you see things they don't, and it means you understand the patterns before they play out, and it means while they were standing in confusion, you already knew the ending. And that realization is a weight they can't shake off. So they stay quiet, watching, processing, sitting with the uncomfortable truth that they dismiss the one person who saw everything clearly. They won't say it out loud, won't admit that they should have listened, but you can feel it in their energy, see it, in their hesitation, that the silent watchers have seen the truth, and they can't unsee it. They say the truth will set you free, but most can't handle it. For the chosen ones in the Obsidian Inner Order, it's not just the truth, it's the whole cosmic download. No sugarcoating, no escape. Picture this. Weekly group calls with 450+ chosen ones, recorded and available anytime for your enlightenment. Our private Discord, it's not just active, it's alive, buzzing with ideas, breakthroughs, and that unstoppable chosen energy. Oh, and for you romantics out there, welcome to Chosen Singles, where soulmates meet under cosmic alignments, not cheap pickup lines. And for the seekers, dive into Modern Manifestation Mechanics, our exclusive grimoire, with 3 chapters available to members. Learn how to turn your home into an abundance magnet. Master basic spellcraft for physical manifestation, and channel magical forces to elevate your goals. Plus, you'll get access to interviews with real targeted individuals and video specials so bold, the YouTube archons don't even want you to see them. This is more than a membership, it's a movement. So what are you waiting for? Stop searching. Start ascending. The link is in the description. They swore they were done with you, moved on, claimed you were nothing, that they had the upper hand. But they can't look away. And they watch, constantly and refreshing your pages, lurking from fake accounts, scrolling through your every move, asking mutuals about you in the most casual way, pretending they don't care. But their actions betray them. They need to know. Did it work? Did the chaos they stirred up break you? Did the betrayals shake you? Did the weight of their sabotage finally bring you to your knees? But the answer, it destroys them. And because you're still standing. More than that, you're thriving, and you're moving forward untouched by the mess they created, unbothered by the obsession they still carry. And it eats at them. Because the moment they realized they couldn't break you, they started looking for another reason to stay attached. And then that. First, it was about winning, watching to see if you would collapse. But when you didn't, the obsession deepened. Now, they're searching for something else, a crack in your armor, a weakness, an explanation for why they failed. And because if they can't hurt you, maybe they can learn from you. Maybe they can figure out how you keep slipping through every trap. Maybe, just maybe, you hold the answer to the mess they created for themselves, but you don't even acknowledge them. And that's what ruins them the most. Because their biggest fear, that you never cared enough to play their game in the first place. And they spent so much time controlling the narrative, carefully curating lies, manipulating perception, bending reality to suit their agenda. They were confident that their version of the story would be the only one that mattered. But truth is not something you can bury forever. It started slowly, a whisper here, a side glance there, doubt creeping into the minds of the very people they thought they had on lock. A shift in the energy, a hesitation in their once loyal supporters. They can feel it, the unraveling, the slow, excruciating collapse of the illusion they worked so hard to maintain. And it's out of their hands, and the same mouths that once defended them are whispering about them now. The same people who once played along are stepping back, uncomfortable, unwilling, to be collateral damage in a game that was never theirs to begin with. And what can they do? Nothing. And they try to spin it, try to reframe the past, try to convince people that none of it was real, that they never lied, that they never did the things they swore up and down they didn't do. But the weight of reality is pressing against them, suffocating their every excuse, and because too many people know. And what terrifies them the most? They can't control the truth anymore. And you don't even have to say a word. The truth is speaking for itself. The proof is in the way people look at them now, different, with doubt, with suspicion. with the quiet realization that everything they defended, everything they believed, was a lie. And they scramble, desperate to put out fires, desperate to silence the truth before it spreads further. But it's too late. They don't own the narrative anymore. .nu.n, and no matter what they do, no matter how much damage control they attempt, they will never get it back. None, they wait for it, desperately, a word, a post, a reaction, anything. They need proof that they still exist in your mind, that they still have power over your emotions. They spent so much time trying to control you, baiting you, doing everything they could to force you into responding. But you don't. You don't. Defend yourself. You don't correct the lies. You don't give them the satisfaction of knowing whether their actions affected you at all. And that is what's tearing them apart. Because your silence is not submission. It is not defeat. It is power. You are not explaining yourself. You are not chasing down rumors. You are not playing their game. You don't need to. And they were the ones desperate for attention. The ones crafting stories, creating chaos, begging the world to watch. They wanted the spotlight, wanted the narrative to revolve around them. But now, that spotlight is burning them alive. Their lies are still circulating, but the difference, no one is fighting them for you. No one is stepping up to debate, to clear your name, to try and convince the world of your innocence, because you don't need them to. And your silence is the confirmation. Because what does it say when the accused doesn't even acknowledge the accusations? When the person they tried to destroy moves forward without even looking back? And it says everything. And it says you're untouchable. And it says you're above them. And it says that whatever they did, it wasn't enough to shake you. And that truth, it's killing them. Because the same attention they once craved, the reactions, the chaos, the validation, is now their curse. They wanted to be seen, but not like this. They wanted a reaction, but not this silence. They wanted control, but now they're losing it. And you're watching them unravel without saying a single word. Something changed and they feel it. You didn't have to say a word, didn't have to seek revenge, didn't have to force them to see the truth. They see it on their own. The weight of their own actions, the cost of their own deception, the irreversible shift in power, and they can't unsee it. And you called it. You saw it before it happened. They know better. And they don't move the same when they speak about you. Their confidence is gone, their words are measured, their tone is careful. They thought they were untouchable, but they learned you are the one who cannot be moved. And you moved forward. They didn't. And you built, they collapsed. And you evolved, they spiraled, and they live in the mess they created. And there is no redemption arc, no moment where they get to undo what they did. The weight of their choices belongs to them now. And the hardest part, knowing they can never go back to the way things were. You will never be blind to their intentions again. They will never have access to you in the way they once did. The door is shut, and they are on the other side, watching you succeed, watching you remain unaffected, watching the consequences of their own actions catch up to them. And they wanted to break you, and instead they broke themselves. So this is the new normal, and you are untouchable, undeniable, unforgettable. And they are nothing more than a cautionary tale. What's the one thing you would say to those who doubted you? Let them know below.